The War is Over, the Stonehouse Series, Chapter 33. In the darkness, he pressed his back against cold, hammered steel straps. Just below his shoulder blades, he could feel blunt, square nail heads, fasteners driven through the iron bands and into rough-hewn wooden door planks. Another drop of sweat wound its way down his neck, and he forced himself tighter to the timbers, trying to become one with its shadows. The drop of sweat was sucked into the damp cotton cloth of his robe. Light from their pursuer's torch flickered on mud-smeared cobblestones at his feet. He pulled his left toe back from the flame's illumination. His lungs screamed out for more air, while he forced himself to maintain low, silent breathing. "Emil, where are you?" Across the narrow alley, and maybe 5 feet to Ben's right, was another building entrance, its recessed door tucked back a foot or more behind a mortar stone jamb. Another shadowy form hiding there tried to hide his labored breathing. "Emil, is that you?" The old man had sprung like a cat, running through the back alleyways just inside Jerusalem's outer city walls. Escaping their initial confrontation with only surface bruises from 2 guards, they were able to keep their faces and identity hidden. After several minutes, they lost most of those who chased them. Only the original guards continued in pursuit. Bethany's runner and their resident goat herder had spent 3 days picking through the sludge of those who sell their souls for money. Finally, their search brought them to the ones they now tried to leave behind. Scarface and Tracker had been posted sentries, while religious leaders discussed plans to permanently silence Lazarus and his sisters. Ben and Emil had slipped into eavesdrop range across a string of rooftops and listened to their planning through an open skylight window. All went smoothly, and they would have lain hidden on that rooftop until pre-dawn silence, but a big brown corn rat stuck its wet nose into Emil's left ear. Bickering voices from their pursuers now mixed with profanity, magnifying their frustration. "I don't give a rat's ass how you do it. Find them!" Ben remembered the ugly face which went with the voice. A heavy-set man about Emil's age, with a long scar that ripped a path from his left eye and disappeared into his beard. Scarface declared. "I saw that man run in here," Scarface declared. "This is Yuta Street. It's a dead-end alley," Tracker responded. "And what do we do with them when we find them?" "They have heard too much. We make sure that they can't repeat what they know." Wet hair on Ben's neck bristled with goosebumps and chased a shiver down his spine. The slithery sound of tool steel sliding against a sheath leather reached his ears. "They have drawn their swords. Emil, help." One set of cautious footsteps moved slowly towards his ears, and yet his eyes detected no movement of the torchlight. Ben forced himself further into the inside corner of his hiding place. Jagged edges of cold stone bit into his left shoulder. He reached back with his right hand, working the door latch, a silent effort to find escape. The latch softly clicked, and Ben pushed against the heavy timber door, only to feel the restrictive thud of a locking crossbar. Tracker's shadowy form was passing his doorway hiding place, but the light behind him had not moved. Tracker snarled out hate-filled orders. Move it, old man. Get yourself down here. I can't see a bloody thing in this blackness. Tracker's insolent voice was now directly in front of Ben. He could smell the unwashed stink of stagnant sweat and wine. But all became silent as the man peered into surrounding blackness. Slowly, sliding gravel sounds rose from the man's feet, and directly in front of Ben appeared the left side of Tracker's face. Highlighted by the flickering torch, yellow light bounced off the man's pockmarked, oily skin. He had twisted himself around to bark demands at his scar-faced accomplice. Blood pounded in Ben's temples. He was trapped, with no place to run. Looking down and to his right, Ben watched with horror as the shadow line of light moved closer towards his hidden form. Too late. Tracker was turning to his left as the torchlight exposed Ben's hiding in the doorway. The voice spat out, "Ha! There you are, my running rabbit!" And then he yelled, "I have found the hiding hole of our running rabbit! What should I do with him now?" "Kill him, and then cut off those big ears of his. We will hang them on a string and sell them to Caiaphas for a piece of silver." Tracker's eyes focused on his target as he brought his right arm across and down, the tip of his broadsword ticking the stones at his left foot. He hesitated, starting the backhand blow for 1 second, pulling out more perverted pleasure from the white-faced panic in Ben's eyes. But Tracker's twisting movement exposed his open neckline. Ben observed as muscled cords flexed tight and hovered, hearts pulsing, and bulge rose and fell beneath the man's greasy yellow-brown skin. Tracker misread the sudden added whiteness of Ben's eyes, his cowering against the timber door, and horror in his eyes. Ben's silent added horror was of Emil's knife reaching around and digging in. Whoa. The old goat herder had struck and withdrawn before the understanding of his action could reach Tracker's clouded mind. Tracker's blood spurted, pulsed, and squirted, spraying Ben's robe and spattered on the ground. The man's head tipped forward, falling into the massive gushing wound. His eyes went to a hollow gray. Ben watched gurgling bubbles popping up for one moment, and then the lifeless form of his attacker crumpled down into the muddy, cobbled alley. The man with the torch never flinched. He didn't speed up and he didn't slow down. He just closed in on the bloody puddles of the blind alley. Emil turned to face their last attacker. This is the same man. He moves the same. He has the same sadistic eyes, the same face, except for where my wife tore it up with the broken handle of an empty cup. By their feet lay Tracker's body, twitching slightly. Its quivering face made ripples in a pool of blood. Its feet pawed the ground in a walking motion. Scarface said, "I didn't want to split the bounty with him anyhow. He's always been too dumb to breathe. But now, boys, I'm a killing machine." His words flowed out in a cloud of filthy breath. Emil declared, "Your days of murdering the innocent are over, Haman. Before your torch goes out, you will be burning in the flames of hell, begging for mercy at the feet of some chained and laughing demon." Scarface sneered, "Now who's going to do that, little man, and how do you know my name?" "It's what they used to call you before you became one of Herod's baby killers. You sold your soul to Satan, and you will get his reward, you piece of human trash." "Oh, That's so harsh, mocked Haman, as he turned slightly to slide his torch into the bracket on the doorpost. He pulled a second short sword from his belt and gave Ben space to grab the torch. "Leave it be, Ben," shouted Emil. "He will cut you down before you're halfway there. Get behind me and up against the middle of the wall." Ben moved around and backed up against the wall. "Just giving the boy some space, little man," jeered Haman, blocking their exit. "He needs to think he's doing well." "Your blood ran red the night your face was torn, Haman," Emil remembered, pulling a second knife from his right-hand sleeve. "But before the new sun rises, the dogs of this city will drink their fill of you and puke your black blood out into the street." Circling in on Emil, Haman said, "I remember you now. You had a little boy. Too bad he died. Serves you right. It was your wife that jumped on my back and ripped my face with a broken cup handle. She did your fighting for you, little man. 6 men to hold me down, you coward of a coward king. You never did know who to fight for." Haman lunged with his broadsword, but Emil sidestepped the blade. He sliced the big man's wrist. Emil's razor-sharp blade raked Haman's wrist, severing tendons and arteries. The sword fell useless to the ground from fingers which would no longer close. "You have gotten slow, Haman, and maybe you have never fought anything but little girls and babies." Ben stared at Emil's hands. A 6-inch double-edged blade protruded from each fist. Each finger had a big brass ring on it, and what looked like brass hammerheads protruded out from the heels of his hands. "You little lizard," barked Haman as he swung a backhand blade at Emil with his still-working left hand. Emil sliced that forearm with his left blade, spun his right, and dove his right-hand fist up into Haman's chin, driving Haman's head cracking backwards. His left-hand blade split Haman's bulging belly, and his right-hand blade came back across Haman's exposed neckline, swung back up and made full-pressure contact from Haman's neck to his navel. Haman's knees buckled, and he hit the ground, hovering, kneeling in front of Emil, his body oozing parts and pieces. With his left-hand blade, Emil brought a final slice of the knife across and just below the man's chin. Haman's body fell forward into the alley, landing face down next to Tracker. Ben was stuck to the wall. He couldn't move. Everything happened too fast, in the space of one breath, and the man was cut to pieces. Responding to Ben's shocked face, Emil said, "Never give the enemy room to move. He will turn around and stab you in the back if you give him space." Haman's end was inevitable. It was just a matter of who and when. Emil wiped the blood from his blades on Haman's shoulder and said, "Come on, Ben, we've got to get out of here. It's almost dawn." A speechless, white-faced, shivering Benjamin turned to leave. As both together they left the alley, 2 mangy dogs trotted by. Ben turned around and blankly watched, gawked, as sniffling dogs licked at bloody bodies lying beneath a flickering torch. The flame was almost out. Ben stammered, turning towards home. We need to get Lazarus and his sisters, all 3 of them, to safer places. Somewhere, Caiaphas and his plans can't reach them, at least for a couple weeks. I believe your neighbor Simon can help us there. He has resources. that can go beyond what you can see. He has a lot of stuff I can see. Between Stonehouse, the winery, vineyards, horses, and all of that land. What does he have beyond that? Well, I'm not quite sure, but he has a way of making things happen. They were at the edge of Jerusalem now, heading southeast and traveling downhill. Emil looked across the valley and to the horizon. Dawn was half an hour away. The valley was thick with early morning fog. It deadened the sounds of a city beginning to stir. Emil, where should we go first? The house of Lazarus? Or home or Stonehouse? An hour won't make any difference, and I'm a smelly mess. You need to get cleaned up too. You should switch robes before someone sees you. You're all splattered with blood. Okay. You're right, Emil answered, looking at his robe. I'll burn this, wash up, and meet you at Stonehouse. With the dinner in 2 days, they're probably all at the house of Simon. Sounds good. I will meet you there. From the center of the soul, and with absolute precision, the watching eagle struck. Dropping from the empty sky and crashing through its silence, 2 rabbits hopping side by side had broken through the family garden fence. Now cut down with deadly force. Plunging talons ripped through the cords around their heart. They had been sitting side by side, eyeing up rows of young peas and beans, and now they were leaving, hanging silently from the claws of one giant bird.